Welcome back. And those of you that are new, welcome. This is a game from round 2 of the U.S. Championship being played in St. Louis, Missouri. Also simultaneously is the U.S. Women's Championship. They're both being played together. This is a hell of a game. As White, Wesley So, one of the top players in the world, who I think someday might get a shot at the World Championship. As White is playing, there's a lot of young guys in this U.S. Championship. Guys I never heard of, and they're top players. This young man's name is Christopher Woo, I should say, Y-O-O. He's rated 25.63, and of course, Wesley, being one of the top players in the world, is 27.74. So Wesley should have a pretty easy time of this. Let's see how it goes. We'll go through the opening here. It's going to be at Petrov. So we'll just go through. I've never played the Petrov. There's a lot of theory in it. I just don't know it. Maybe I should try it for the heck of it. D4, pawn. We'll just go through. Pretty much standard stuff. C4. C4. Right away, threatening. Black center here. And of course, if black takes, bishop just takes. Black goes C6 to reinforce his pawn. And then rook E1. This is pretty much standard stuff. Unless you know this opening, you can get in a lot of trouble real quick. Queen to B3. Queen to D7. C5. And bishop C7. Now, as long as you're thinking, look, there's a pawn for free. And the knight can't move. So I'm going to get a rook too. Well, those of you that think that pawn is free, stop the video and see why you cannot take this. I'm going a little crazy here with my arrows. I'm trying to get rid of them. See if you can figure out why this pawn is not free. Stop the video. And those of you that have figured it out, and if you didn't, if queen takes pawn, this bishop takes pawn check, exposing the queen, and you lose the queen. So that pawn is not hanging. So it's queen to C2. Queen comes back. Knight A6. There's nowhere else for the knight to go. A3, just to stop the knight from coming in here to hit both of these pieces. Bishop G6. This is mostly theory. I'm sure these guys have done this a million times. The computer likes rook A to E8. That'll be a little stronger. And actually, I agree. But bishop G6. Knight C3. F5. Now, White's the only one with an undeveloped piece, and that's the bishop on C1. And this is complicated. There's a lot going on in the middle of the board. Knight to E2. He's going to bring the knight around bishop. So you're looking at, hey, look at this. One of these knights is going to go. But if it's this knight, you got to take the pawn. That exposes the white king. But you go knight to G3. He doesn't take it, of course. Knight goes back to E2. Bishop H5 again. Knight G3. Looks like they're going to repeat. He goes back, but this time, White doesn't want to repeat. Why would Wesley do a draw on move 18? I don't think you can anyway, unless it's a repetition of moves. He goes B4, which makes perfect sense. So here we are. I have a computer running off screen. About a half a point advantage for White. No big deal. Looks like White needs to develop his dart squared bishop. Bring both his rooks to the center. And it's just a game, and the kid's doing really well. So he finally brings the other rook. Wesley develops his bishop. Rook E6. That's an interesting move. Now, I never would have saw that myself. The computer likes queen to D8 for some reason. I don't know why. But there's queen to D8, rook E6, and queen F7 in the computer's choices. The kid went rook E6. So Wesley put knight E2. I think he wants to bring the knight here. So that way he's hitting the rook and the bishop. Queen e7. But he went knight e5 instead. Brought the other knight up. Now that's interesting. I don't know if I would have done that. But I guess what he's looking at is if bishop takes, which he shouldn't do, pawn takes, this bishop is guarding that pawn and then eventually go here. That's a really nice center. So black does not want to take that. So he goes f4 instead. That's a fascinating move. Fascinating move. For those of you that are looking at queen h4 after g3, queen g5, knight f4, and black's in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. But after f4, knight takes the bishop, rook takes, and then he just kicks the knight with f3. Now, if he had taken bishop takes c4, d takes, knight c3, e3, that would have given an advantage to black. Let's go back to f3. Now, this is interesting. The knight's being attacked by the pawn, as you can see. But that's not what white does. And I never would have saw this myself. He goes queen h4 for black. I never would have saw that. Because if what would have happened was, and then knight c3. Let's go back here a little bit. Rook takes f3, queen h4. He went knight c3. Now, if he had taken, let's take a look at if he had taken that knight. Pawn moves up. Pawn can't take because the rook is here. Yeah, look at that. And then this pawn would have went check with a rook guarding it. And after the king moves, pawn takes rook, queen. So things look so simple, but they're not. But that queen h4, he went knight c3, rook h6, threatening, going to end up threatening mate. So he just goes simply h3 to get out of it. Now, what would you do here as black? It's about an even game so far. There's pretty much only one move. Knight g5. Trying to break down white's defenses with knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes. It's going to be tough. This battery coming down. That's tough. This black pawn is covering some escape squares for the king. So Wesley brings the queen over. Figuring, okay, let's trade queens before it gets to be too late, but black wants no part of that. Wants to keep the attack going. So, pretty complicated. Looks like white might be in a little trouble, and the computer's got a small advantage for white still, so it's not as bad as it looks. So white goes b5. When you have something going on your side of the board, you put a distraction on the other. That's the old rule. And if you take, knight takes, threatening the bishop. Bishop's got really nowhere to go. So black says, the heck with it. I'll just go knight b8. Not a great spot for it, to be honest with you. a4, just to reinforce the pawn. What to do, what to do. Brings the bishop over to help with the attack. Maybe, though, you should have played queen. Takes x3. That might have been interesting. Because after pawn takes, after bishop d8, rook e2 to reinforce the g-pawn for white. So black just backs off with queen f7. Meanwhile, this rook is still hanging in front of the king. A lot of problems there. So he just moves the king Right now, it's pretty even score. Knight D7. He's going to bring the other knight around. A5. Now, what would you do here? Interesting enough. Let's take a look. What are some of the options for black? Knight takes pawn. G takes, rook takes. Now, they're in a hell of a spot here. Hell of a spot. Take some very careful defense here. Queen to G2. Now the queen comes up. Rook F2. This way, try to do an escape. Try to bring the king around if you can. Rook G3, going after the queen. Queen H2, looking for a trade. Rook just comes back. Queen just goes back. Wesley's thinking, okay, what do you think here would be a good, what's a good move here? What's a good move here for black? Stop the video. And it's an excellent move, by the way. What are you trying to do? You're trying to corner white's king. So you're trying to take away some of white's king's escape squares. But what are some of his escape squares? And the answer is rook E8. Now, this whole file, white cannot move his king here or here. In fact, he's threatening mate or have to give up the queen. Rook here, check. Queen has to interpose. Rook takes queen, you lose your queen. So he goes knight to E2. Forget if there is a check, the knight can go to G1. And this got serious in a hurry. So what do you do as black? Bring in the other rook. Sure, why not? Now you have 1, 2, 3 attackers on this pawn and only 2 defenders. And this is where Wesley, I think, buckles a little bit under the pressure. It made sense logically what he did, but I don't know why he did it. Computer likes moving the king to G1. That way you're covering the square, so if there is a check, you can play queen takes, and the king's guarding the square, but he goes rook A3. And just like that, it's an over 2-point advantage for black. And against somebody like Wesley So, that's a big deal. Rook to H1, of course. And, of course, he brings the knight. Knight to F6. Here comes the other knight. Bishop C1, hitting the rook. Says, I don't care. Go ahead, take the rook. I could really care less. He goes queen H4. Bishop takes the rook. Pawn takes. The walls are closing in, but looks like white might survive this. He's the exchange up. A rook for 2 pawns, I should say. Bishop takes H7 check. Queen takes. Rook takes pawn. So when it comes down to it is, white's up the exchange. But black still has an advantage. Still. Let's see what he does with it. Bishop C7. Yeah, it looked like the walls are closing in. And this is where Wesley, I think, messes up again. This is on move 45, so it's not a time control problem, I don't believe. The computer likes the rook on F to E2. Double up the rooks. Makes sense. He decides to go rook E7. You know, go for it. Going for the attack on the bishop. And that is a fatal mistake. Queen B1 check. What can he do? What can he do? He's got to move the rook back. Now, he goes queen to D3. Which rook do you block with? Do you block with the E rook? Or do you block with the F rook? You block with the E rook, you're really in a lot of trouble. But if you block with the F rook like he did, you're doomed. Absolutely doomed. Rook to H2. Can't take it because the bishop's guarding it. Queen has to move. And the final blow, What's the final blow to this? Knight H5. It's beautiful. Can't check because the bishop's guarding that square. And the threat is here. But even still, the threat is also, there's here, there's takes, there's all kinds of stuff going on. He's pretty much doomed. It could be here. All the pieces are surrounding White's king. Let's just take a look at it to see. See, what would you do? What would you do? Move, where are you going to put the queen? Leave it where it is? So say you went here. Knight to G3 check. Queen has to take. Bishop takes queen. There's really nothing you can do. What are you going to move? You're going to check here? You can't because you can't move the piece. We're going to move the rook somewhere. The only thing you can do is maybe move knight here. And then queen takes check. Rook blocks. And this is a fancier mate. Queen can take the rook check, or rook can take, or simply just here. And knight blocks. And the queen takes mate. If you really wanted to be a jerk.
Mate.
And there it is. And there it is. Usually you don't see Wesley do that kind of thing, but hats off to the kid that played, I think, an excellent game, capitalized on a couple of small mistakes Wesley made and made him into huge, huge advantages for himself. So this Christopher Wu kid, he's an up-and-comer. He's rated 2563, 200 points, more than 200 points less than Wesley So, but he pulled off a beautiful game. So these young bucks that are coming up, look out, guys. The ones that have been on top for a long time, Nakamura, So, Fabiano, Caruana, Levinaronian, Dominguez, all of them, and Sam Shankin, look out. The young guys are coming up right behind you. So be on the best of your game. So there it is, folks. A game from round 2 of the U.S. Championship being played in St. Louis at the St. Louis Chess Club and Scholastic Center. And they have their own YouTube channel, so if you wanted to see the entire commentary for the whole round, just go to the St. Louis Chess Club and Scholastic Center YouTube channel, where they have tons of videos and have the entire commentary for this around here. Until next game, folks, goodbye and good luck.